name is Dana Clinton, and I am the Science Assessment Coordinator, and along with me is Leah Bolton, who is also a Science Assessment Coordinator. And we are happy that you're with us, and hopefully you'll get something out of this, and we'll see what happens next. Today, what we're going to look at, the vision for our Science Standards for Science. We're going to look at the shifts that are necessary in the classroom so that our kids are prepared and can master our new science standards. And we're going to look at the field test design, item types, and a set-based design. So we'll look at the instructional shifts first, field test design, then we'll look at some sample items and resources, and then next steps from there. Okay, our assessment is put together so that it supports the instructional shifts that are going to go in the classroom. If you look at this, these are our, this is our vision, our assessment vision. And what we're doing is our standards for science represent the knowledge and the skills the students need to successfully transition to either post-secondary education or to a career, the workplace. And in that vision, our standards want our students to apply content knowledge, investigate, evaluate, and reason, and connect ideas across disciplines. We are committed to supporting each level of the system, teachers, principals, school system leaders, because we want to produce high-quality standards, align curriculum, assessments, and professional development to help continue to raise the bar for our students. We believe that all students can achieve, and we want to measure their progress so that they remain on track so that they can be prepared for college or ultimately a career. This is what the new standards look like, and I feel sure that most of our teachers already have looked at this and are familiar, but just a quick go over for it. The performance expectation is actually the standard. We have a clarification statement that gives us a little bit more detail about the performance expectation, and then there are 3 dimensions to the PE. We have science and engineering practices, we have disciplinary core ideas, and we have cross-cutting concepts. This shows how they all interrelate to each other. In the content knowledge, that is the develop the skills, the knowledge, the actual science of the standard, what kids know and learn in science. We want the kids, as an assessment, to be able to answer the questions aligned to the grade level standard and a specific phenomena. The science, the SEPs, the engineering practices, this is where kids just don't learn about science, they do science. They integrate how scientists think, how they write, how they read, solve, design problems. And so in the assessment end of it, we look at something more than just recall. We're interested to see if the students can apply the behavior of a scientist or an engineer and to some real-world problem. And then the cross-cutting concepts are something that is across all domains of the science, and that we want to know that the students are learning these concepts and they're able to progress with these concepts into the next grade level. So we have multidimensional alignment. And so those are the 3 things that I just mentioned. It's got a DCI, which is content knowledge, SEP, which are the practices, and cross-cutting concepts. Now, items begin with one performance expectation or a pair. And what we do, we call that a bundle. And the pairs or the bundles mesh with one another. And they can, the 2 PEs can support multiple questions, even though they may be in a different domain like physical science and life science. In our assessment, our items and our item sets are aligned to at least 2 dimensions, which all items are, even our standalones. but our task sets have to be aligned to all three of the dimensions. This is an old GLE question, and if you remember back to the GLEs, most of the GLEs that we had, they were recall. It was just nothing more than, describe or what is, and this was just asking about weather and climate. Describe the difference. Very straightforward recall. Well, here is a new sample science item that is still talking about weather and climate, but it is bringing into that area a specific problem that the kids can look at and try a solution to the problem. And if you'll notice on the side, we have where it shows that the item is aligned to an SEP and a DCI. What we did, and this is all in the assessment guides, is we took and we color-coded the three dimensions. The SEPs are blue, the DCIs are orange, and the cross-cutting concepts are green. So we've also, in the sample items in the assessment guide, have annotated just like this, what the kids are supposed to learn as far as the SEP is concerned. All right, so these are our goals for our new science assessment. First of all, these science assessment items that are going to be on the field test only and then into the operational test, they have been vetted by Louisiana educators. And they were looking at, okay, did it align to the standard? Is it appropriate for the grade level? And before it even reached the teacher committees, it went through several rounds of vetting between the department and the vendor, and then the teachers weighed in, and we took all of that into consideration to create these assessments. And also in creating the assessments, we want to make sure that we hit the full range of student performance, from our low-performing students to our high-performing students. So when we create those assessment items, some of the items will be very, very easy, and some will be quite difficult and will take a lot of reasoning and thought process on the part of the student. And then we wanted to be able to give information to parents and educators if these children were on the right track for college or for career readiness. So that's our goals for these assessments. Okay, our field test design. There is no operational test for grades 3 through 8. It is a standalone only. There will be 2 sessions. It is timed. Now, science has never been a timed test. Now, for this field test, we have suggested a time, but we don't know what the operational timing will be, because once we are done with the field testing, we will look at the timing data, and we will come to a conclusion about how much time do these kids need to take this test. So for right now, and it is in the science assessment guide of how much time the kids are going to get for session 1 and session 2. But that's just, even though it's timed, they can only have that amount of time. That can be adjusted when the test becomes operational. It's going to be given in the same test window as all the other grades 3 through 8 tests. We are going to have online tests except for grade 3, 4. They do have an option of paper-based. Okay? And again, all the items that are on these field tests have been reviewed by educators to make sure that they are meeting the standard and that they're grade level appropriate. All right, for grades 6 through 8, session 1 is going to have 2 item sets and 3 discrete items. They're going to be allowed 60 minutes. Session 2 is 1 task set, 55 minutes. And we're going to talk about what an item set and what a task set is in just a moment. Here are our item types. Selected response. We have 2 kinds of selected response. We have just a normal multiple choice, or we have a multiple select. Some of this is going to be familiar to our students because they have this in the other grades. Multiple choice has 4 answer options, 1 correct answer. Multiple select for grades 6 through 8, we're going to have 5 to 7 options and more than 1 correct answer. Now, If it is a multiple select that is not part of a dependent item, and I'll talk about that in a minute, we will always tell the student how many answers they should select. In other words, the question will say, select the 2 correct answers or select the 3. That will happen, but there is going to be an instance where they will not be given the number to choose, and we'll talk about that as we go through these item types. Okay, technology enhanced. Again, our students should be familiar because they have been on the computer. We have drag and drop. Drop-down menu is like an inline choice where they just click the arrow and the answers show up and they click one of them. Matched interaction is when they are putting something into a table or choosing something out of a table. And a hotspot is they can click on a part of a map or a graphic and give us the answer from that. All right, this is where the difference comes in on the number given. There's 2-part items, and we have what's called a 2-part dependent and dependent. 2 points. You can get part A right and part B wrong and get 1 point. You can get part A wrong and part B right and get 1 point, or neither of them right or both of them right. So you can get from 0 to 1 to 2 points. In the 2-part dependent, however, it is the type of question that's going to ask a student for a evidence, and then the part B is going to say, okay, what did you use to support your answer? And because it's asking to support the answer in part A, if they don't get part A right, they cannot get any points for the item. It doesn't matter if they get B right or not, because you cannot support something that you've answered incorrectly. So they would get 2 points if they got A and B right, but they get 0 points if A is incorrect. Okay, so they cannot get any points for that. In a 2-part dependent, if it's a multiple select, we do not tell them how many because they're having to provide evidence of support. And so that question will read something like, select all that apply. So there is a difference between just a regular multiple select and a multiple select that ends up in a 2-part dependent item. Our constructor response is short. It's only worth 2 points. It's 2D or 3D alignment. It's always going to be 2-dimensional, but it can be 3. But our ERs are much longer. They are worth 9 points, and they have to align to all 3 dimensions. They have to have a DCI, an SCP, and a CCC. All right, what we do to create these assessments, and this is what we hopefully will happen in the classroom, is you can do this one of 2 ways. You can choose a phenomena and look at your standards and find a performance expectation that matches that phenomena, or you can choose a PE and find a phenomena that matches it. But that's what we're going to, we look at some kind of scientific phenomena to focus our items on. And all the stimulus materials that the kids get describes this phenomena. It's going to have 4 to 5 questions in these item set and task sets. Really important to know, the kids are going to use the stimulus materials, but they have to bring something to the table as well. They are going to have a constructor response, and others will not. And then, of course, the task set always has a 9-point extended response. Okay, so we're going to look at a sample field test task set. This is from grade 7. It includes the alignment with an analysis, the item types. We have the sample from there. The first thing we put in there is we put the two PEs. This item has bundled PEs. They happen to be both in physical science. And then we have this table here. And what this table does is it lets you know that the very first item in the set is a technology-enhanced item. This is the PE that it's aligned to. These are the two DCIs, and this is the SEP. So you see that it is aligned to two dimensions. All of them are until the ER, and you'll notice that there's 3 alignments there. So every one of our items have this chart and lets you know. So this is the stimulus materials. The kids are going to read about the property of water, and this is the first item. And remember, if you go back to that chart, it tells you what it's aligned to. And what we did is we took on the side, we put an analysis of, okay, this is what they had to know for the SEP, and this is the DCI they had to know for this item, okay? And then this is a drag and drop. They're going to drag the molecules into the box and the arrows to show the phase of matter. All right, this is just a normal multiple choice, but again, if you'll notice, it's aligned to an SEP and the DCI. This is a technology enhanced, and notice that this is aligned to DCI and a cross-cutting concept, which is scale, proportion, and quantity, because they're asking them to look at some quantities and answer some questions about those quantities. I will tell you this, that in some of the items, just because they're aligned or SCP or CCC, that doesn't mean that that's forever, because some items can align to the same item can align to different SCPs and different CCCs. It's kind of, in the classroom, it's kind of up to you what you want it to align to. So there's no an item, and we had several different. So the graphs here, they're aligned to a DCI and cross-cutting concept. Okay, this is the ER. Now, all of the ERs will have this general direction that says as you respond to Part A and Part B, unless there's not parts, but it'll give these directions to address all the instructions in each prompt, use evidence from the information provided in your knowledge of science to support your responses. So all of those will have, those directions will be in our ERs. And if you'll look on to the left, you'll see that this does align to 3 dimensions. There's an SCP, DCI, and there's a CCC. All right, now when I say, our slide said rubrics, but basically what we have is what we call a scoring note. We don't have a traditional rubric because it is not like a holistic rubric. We don't do that. We want to know, what is the answer? Did you get this answer? So you'll notice that in Part A, it is worth 5 points. They get a point for identifying what tools are needed and 2 points for identifying the independent and dependent variable. They get a point for the description of the steps and a point for its explanation. And then Part B is 4 points, and it shows exactly what we would want to see to get those 4 points. And the way it's scored is they score Part A, and however many points they get in Part A and however many points they get in Part B, they're put together out of 9 points. It's mainly adults that are writing this, so this is not something that we would expect to see from just from some of our students. I will tell you, we do not score on did they write a correct paragraph, did they use the correct grammar, did they spell the words right? Because if we do that, then we start getting into ELA, and that's not what we want. We want to score our kids on the science content only. So, if a kid can answer something in 2 sentences, great. For an ER, I'm not sure that they could. But this is kind of what we would look for in an answer. After the field test is over, we go back to what we call range finding, and we have teachers set what could be accepted as a point, and here are some tools that we have, and you can access these. They have the shifts in the science. We have learning progressions. We have sample scope and sequence documents. There's not one for every grade yet, I don't believe. Assessment doesn't handle that part, so I'm not sure what's on the site for those. We are going to have an online training tool. It's in the process of being finished, where probably for next year your kids will be able to have samples online and practice answering online. And we do have the science field test guides. Okay, the best test prep is your instruction that incorporates our shifts. And we put these resources up here because NST has some really good things. They have some classroom sample tasks, very long, and they incorporate all kinds of standards from different disciplines. And we have classroom resources from NSTA as well. Okay, now we have about 8 minutes left. So if you have any questions, I know this was very rushed, and I'm sorry, but we only had the 30 minutes. But if you have a question, if you'll type it in, and if it's something I feel like we'll either respond directly to you, or I will answer it across the board where everybody can know what the question is and answer it and get some clarification. But I will also tell you this. First of all, this PowerPoint is on the website. If you go to assessment guidance, it's on there. Also, if you have any other questions that later on, okay. Did you answer, Kathy? No. One of them, Kathy had a question. So did you say other than the two-part dependent, the number of correct answers will be given? Yes. For 3 through 5, they will always be given the number of answers because that's the lower grades. But for biology in 6 through 8, yes, they'll be given the number unless it's in that two-part dependent. Brian, will any of the writing be assessed based on? No, our writing basically, well, it depends on what it is because we're going to look at our scoring notes and we're going to score based on did they hit these bullet points, and that's what we look at when we're scoring. And I'm not sure if I answered your question to your satisfaction, but that's about all I could tell you right now about the scoring. Ellie, will any more sample practice test items? We are working on a practice test. I don't think the practice test is going to be ready before this year, and because I think one of the reasons is the field test only, and so the practice test will be more beneficial before the operational, so it will be there. We are in talks about what's going to happen with EAGLE. We don't know yet, but we do have a meeting set up, and we're going to discuss. EAGLE usually comes from the science content side, but we are going to see about, some EAGLE things. Okay, Karen, we have put up sample test items for certain items, but the content people are the ones that are doing the scope and sequence, and those are the ones that will be putting up questions for the units. And like I said, I'm not sure what we have on the website as far as scope and sequence, but you can check it out under resources. Okay, Sharon says she's having trouble finding some sites you can go to. I will tell you this: if you can go to NSTA. But what I did before a lot of this, because I was kind of interested to see what other states had. I Googled science assessment task, and a lot of the states are releasing task as a released item. So you can check with other states and Google that, and there could be some more. All we have right now is this, our field test assessment guide, and we're working on a practice test, and that's all we have right now. Nathan, I can't answer that right. Nathan wants to know if PD is going to be offered to teachers to help teachers write items and item sets. I'm not sure. I know that there's going to be some PD at some point, but I don't know what it's going to entail. Coppermill Elementary, will the sample test items be available in interactive ways? Yes, that's what the online OTT is. It helps these kids. It takes these items that we have in our assessment guide and we put them into an online platform, and they get to practice. And it also has, the online training tools also have hints that precede the question that says, okay, you can use this button to cross out wrong answers. So there's a lot of hints in there, and it gets them used to using the platform. Yes, Tamika, there is a possibility of Eagle getting it. I just can't tell you when. It's a slow process, so I'm not sure. Karen, I can't give you any specific states because it's been a while, but I know that you ready, but I know that good practice because it makes your kids think about things, it makes them write, it makes them investigate. It's just not in the format of the sample items that we put in the assessment guide. But it's a good way to start and kind of get your kids into, thinking about science and writing about it and reading about it. The OTT, we're in the process of finalizing that, so I don't know a specific date, but what you can do is I can find out. I just don't have it at the top of my head, but if you'll send an email to assessment@la.gov, we can get that to you about when the OTTs are going to come out. The question was asked, do you know whether or not the field test will be a part of school performance score evaluation? No, it will not. We don't, in fact, schools are not even going to get anything back. We will receive the data because we have to look at the data to determine whether the item is good enough for an operational test. So everything that's collected from the standalone field test is for the department to use. So nothing will go back to the school. So it's not going to be part of the score for this year. Oh, Angela, it's OTT. That's the online training tools. Right now, it's there. Online training tools are available for every one of the content areas except for science. We have not put ours up yet because we're working on that. Okay, Erica, I answered that question, but I'm not sure. Oh, you're answering it too. You're not going to get any feedback because it's a field test, and it would not
Where is the PowerPoint located on the website?
Okay, it's on the assessment guidance page. The PowerPoint is. Anybody else have any other questions? Remember, if you think of questions later, which you might, just shout out an email at assessment@la.gov, and we will get back with you. And I really appreciate you giving up your time. I know it's hard at the end of the day for you to sit through. I know you're tired and want to go home. I totally get it, but we really appreciate your interest in this, and we hope that it has given you something to think about. And please let us know if we can help you with anything. And if you don't have any other questions, then we will say goodbye, and I hope you have the rest of the day off and nice. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Louisiana Department of Education, copyright 2018, all rights reserved. For more information or to contact the Louisiana Department of Education on the web, go to www.louisianabelieves.com or call 1-877-453-2721.